I'd like to introduce you this morning to Mary Ellen Maunz, who will be giving the next lecture in our series of Montessori workshops. Mary Ellen Maunz received her Montessori preschool certificate from the Association Montessori International Montessori Institute of Los Angeles in 1972. Mrs. Maunz joined the faculty of Montessori International in Colorado Springs, Colorado in 1972 and taught preschool there for 2 years. Mrs. Maunz received her Montessori elementary training from the International Center for Montessori Studies in Bergamo, Italy in 1975. In 1976, she returned to the United States and taught grades 1 to 3 in Bethesda, Maryland. In 1977, she rejoined the faculty of Montessori International in Pasadena, California, where she taught for 2 years. In 1978, Mrs. Maunz received a certificate in the pastoral care of children according to the principles of the Montessori method from the Institutes of Religion in Houston, Texas. In 1978, she also took over the position of preschool administrator at Montessori International in Malibu, California, headquarters of Church Universal and Triumphant. She held this position until 1984. She studied Montessori infant toddler development under Dr. Silvana Montanaro in a 10-day course in Tarrytown, New York in 1979. From 1980 through 1983, Mrs. Maunz was personally trained by Dr. Elizabeth Kaspari, student and friend of Maria Montessori and co-founder of the Pan American Montessori Society. Mrs. Maunz was awarded her master teacher credential after giving 7 teacher training courses with Dr. Kaspari. Mrs. Maunz trained teachers in Savannah, Georgia in 1984 for the United Way Agency and conducted a preschool class and a teacher training course in Marietta, California in 1987. That same year, she received her Bachelor of Science degree in Child Development from the University of La Verne at La Verne, California. She became elementary administrator of Montessori International at our Royal Teton Ranch in Montana in 1988, a position she still holds. Mrs. Maunz taught 6th grade for 2 years. She was co-director of Montessori International teacher training courses from 1980 to 1984 and has been in that role from 1988 until the present. Mrs. Maunz sits on the board of directors of the Montessori Accreditation Council for Teacher Education, which is the umbrella organization created to accredit all Montessori teacher training courses in the United States. She is also active as a teacher trainer in the Spalding method of phonics. She has lectured widely at high schools and colleges in Southern California, at American Montessori Society conferences, and at selected cities around the country, as well as at Summit University in Montana. She has had several magazine articles published on Montessori education. Won't you please welcome Mrs. Mary Ellen Maunz.
At the same time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus called a little child unto him, and set him in the midst of them, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted, and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Good morning. I'd like to share with you several stories that vividly illustrate why I'm here this morning to talk to you about the religious development of the young child. The first story is of a 3-year-old girl, a 3-year-old child who grew up in an atheist family. Religion was never spoken of in her home. She didn't go to a preschool. She had very few contacts outside of her home. One day she asked her daddy, where does the world come from? Well, as an atheist, he gave her a very careful, simple, reasoned, materialistic explanation. But he concluded with, honey, some people think that it all came from a greater power, and they call him God. Well, the little girl got up, started running around the room, dancing with joy and jubilance. She said, I knew it wasn't true. It's him. It's him. Montessori once said she did not believe in accelerating children. It was more a matter of tapping into their potential. We're here this morning to discuss the religious potential of the child. He has more than an academic potential, a physical potential. He has a deep, living, spiritual potential within. We've seen this potential at Montessori International. We've worked with it. By the grace of God, we have had the opportunity to assist children in this development. Consider a 5-year-old boy who asked his mother, "Whom do you love most, me or God?" The mother thought about it. She reassured him, "Well, of course, I love you more." The little child said, "That is truly your big mistake." Where does a 5-year-old child come with such wisdom? Think back on your own childhood experiences. Perhaps you had something that would classify as a religious experience as a child. A little girl named Linda, not quite 5, was outside playing one day and saw a butterfly that attracted her attention, and she started chasing after it. Suddenly, in her own words, "Everything seemed to open up around me. I could see more clearly and felt filled with joy and warmth all through my whole body." The experience for this child was so strong and clear, she burst into tears of joy and ran to her mother saying, "Mommy, I know God." How is it that a child would take that experience and translate it into knowing God? What is the wisdom within our children? These precious stories come from a marvelous book. It's now out of print, but will soon be reprinted, and it's entitled The Religious Potential of the Child by Dr. Sophia Cavalletti. Cavalletti is a wonderful lady. She lives in Rome, Italy, and I had the great privilege to study with her, both in Bergamo, Italy, when I was studying elementary Montessori there, and at a month-long conference in Houston, Texas. She was commissioned over 35 years ago by Dr. Maria Montessori to develop religious training for children along the lines of the Montessori method. She has diligently followed this path and documented her work, bringing to fruition what Maria Montessori herself called the true mission of her educational methods. The true mission of her method is teaching religion to children. She tells us in her writings that she believed that the revelations of her work were given to her by God for His own ends. Perhaps some of you don't know that beloved Maria Montessori, who passed on in 1952, is a Lady Master. Her work is indeed the seed work for the education of the new age. Montessori gives us a profound understanding of what she calls the inner teacher, the Holy Christ self of each child. When we prepare an environment rich in motives of activity that correspond with the inner development of the child, with his developmental stages, and then leave the child free in this environment to select those lessons that he needs to do, that he wants to do, we see the true fruits of what we call a Montessori child. A joyous, calm child, unfolding and blossoming according to the inner directives, fulfilling that beautiful pattern of his unique divine plan. Montessori fully understood that each and every child has his own divine pattern. And she understood that God has not neglected the development of the psychology of the child in the setting forth of His laws. She said, "Now God has given to the child a nature of his own and has fixed certain laws for his development, as much and as surely in the psychic realm as in that of the physical. Anyone who is responsible for the child's development should become acquainted with these laws. To turn away from them would mean to lose that direction which God, as the guide of the child, gives to us. she goes on to say, to discover the laws of the child's development would be the same thing as discovering the spirit and wisdom of God operating in the child. This is the true mentality of the educator. That is, the recognition of the divine wisdom as a necessary element in his work as an educator. These words have meant so much to me over the years since I first found them. The understanding that God has set forth laws for the development of the child, and as we learn through observing, each and every child may go through those laws of development in a slightly different way, but as we observe, as we pray for divine guidance and vision to understand how best to help the child, we become truly an educator. The religious life, as in all areas of the child's development, passes through stages of development. There are what Montessori called sensitive periods. Modern psychologists call them critical stages or critical periods, when the child is acutely open to certain kinds of stimulus, certain kinds of experience more so than others. And when a child is in a period like this, learning is effortless and easy. These are periods in the life of the child when there arises a deep, mysterious urge, almost a passion to conquer a certain activity, a certain movement, a certain skill. These periods are transitory. Sometimes they last just a few hours, other times days, weeks, months. Look at, for example, at the child starting to babble. This is a sensitive period for learning to speak. Short of taping the child's mouth shut, there's nothing we can do to stop him. We can't start it, nor can we stop it. It's not even a conscious willing or desiring on the part of the child. It's the fulfillment of life's energy through that child. In the Montessori method of education, we seek to take advantage of this potential for the development of these sensitive periods and provide an external activity that corresponds to the child's inner need. Another example is the sensitive period for learning to read, which takes place much earlier than most people would imagine. You know, Mother has taught us that one of the reasons we start reading with children with word cards and so forth at a very early age is to help the child bring his knowledge from previous embodiments forward before he has a chance to forget. Perhaps the same applies to religion. I recently read a very touching story that exemplifies this idea. There was a family with a 4-year-old child who had a new baby. And the 4-year-old begged to be alone with the baby. And of course the mother and father had read stories about sibling rivalry, and they were a little bit afraid that maybe the older child was going to be jealous and hurt the baby. So they wouldn't let that happen. At one point they bought an intercom system and set it up in the baby's bedroom. And they decided, since the little girl kept asking over and over again, I just want to be by myself with the baby. They said, okay. So they let her go into the bedroom with the intercom switched on. And they had to strain to hear this little girl talking to her newborn baby sister saying, tell me all about God. I'm starting to forget. Maria Montessori discovered that children from the earliest ages up to about age 6 or 7 is in a sensitive period for religious formation. The child at this age has the potential to learn an inclination toward God, to talk to God, to think seriously about the matters of spiritual life. It's evident through the first story I told this morning of the atheist family, this little girl, that to some degree this development can happen in spite of a negative environment. But just think what can happen when we give a rich, inspiring environment to our children to assist that spiritual development and that inclination towards God. This correspondence between the inner experience of the child and his outer activities is perhaps one of the key points of the Montessori method. And I believe it's one of the reasons why the Montessori method is such an enduring success. So this is a principle we would bear in mind in our discussion of teaching religion to young children. What is the child experiencing inside of himself? How are we to know? The Ascended Master Casimir Poseidon, in a wonderful dictation entitled "Learn to Love to Do Well, and You Shall," which was delivered on October 5th, 1975, at a conference in Minneapolis called Education in the Age of Aquarius, gave us an outline of the inner experiences of children in the retreats of the Ascended Masters in the first 7 years of their lives. I'd like to read to you some excerpts from that dictation. To whom shall they turn? Parents are ignorant of the law of life. Teachers are ignorant and duped. Where shall they turn? I ask you to call that they shall turn within and find the angel of the presence and the guardians of life and the virgin consciousness and the mantle of the Divine Mother to be placed upon them as the swaddling garment of light. Let them be taken to the etheric temples of light while their bodies sleep. Let them be taken to the etheric schools. Let them be taken to these schools of light where they can unlearn what they are learning on Terra and have reinforced the blueprint of their fiery destiny. In these etheric temples, the little children are taught what little children were taught in the Golden Age civilizations. In the first year of life, the guardian spirits of these little ones teach them to meditate upon the will of God, upon the spoken word. And they are given instruction through sound and the intoning of the Logos by the angelic hosts. And that which they take into the inner ear, the music of the spheres, they begin to release in the spoken word, making sounds, imitating their teacher. Remember, I was speaking about the sensitive period for language. It's coming from the higher realms. Casimir Poseidon goes on to say, every little child at the etheric plane can say the name Om. And every little child understands without being taught that this is the vibration of home. In the second year of development, in the inner spheres, angels of Jophiel's band reinforce the light of illumination spheres of the second ray, and that illumination flame is for the bringing forth of the Christ consciousness and the yellow plume in its development and the activation of the crown chakra. Children rejoice in the study of the laws of life. And do you know that their souls in the etheric body are much more free to advance in learning than the child is in the physical plane, as it must adapt to its new body, its new environment. Then comes the third year, and the bathing of the soul in the retreats of the masters in the love of the light of Ariel. The Ascended Master Ariel has a special place in his retreat over the state of Arizona for the tutoring of little children, even in the light and the sound rays, for the activation of the heart chakra and communication with elementals. In the fourth year, there is the consciousness of Serapis Bay and how the children love to march and march to the triumph of Aida, to the victory of life, to the ascension flame. And they feel the blueprint that comes forth from the white flame of the fourth ray. Children at the age of 5, in the development of the mind and soul, have an innate understanding of the science of the mother. They are taught astronomy, and they look at the stars and they understand the relationships of the stars. And they are taught to read the emanations of the stars as they come forth and are released by the solar hierarchies. Yes, I tell you, at the age of 5, some of you in this room have had this experience of being in the retreats of the Brotherhood and studying the stars with Hilarion Encyclopedia. Isn't that wonderful? We recently went on a camping trip, and I have a 5-year-old daughter. And we took her out and studied the stars, and I was thinking of this dictation as I did it, and I thought, what a wonderful experience she's likely to have in the retreats tonight. In the 6th year, they rejoiced to visit the Arabian retreat, where Nada and Jesus teach them the life of service, of serving one another and taking care of one another. They play house, and they play father and mother and children, and assume the various roles in life that they will have to assume on earth. This is in accordance with the teachings of the Christ and of the Buddha, who taught their disciples that life is truly a drama. In the 7th year, concluding the course of the setting of the record of the etheric body, the children rejoice and look forward to going to the retreat of Saint Germain, the cave of symbols where they are taught fundamental instruction in alchemy. They are given the hope and the joy of freedom and freedom's flame. And they trust Saint Germain, for you know he has promised the little children that some would come to rescue them. Angels clothed with bodies such as you now wear. Saint Germain has promised these little ones that they will find the path and the way and the truth and the life, and they will find reinforcements for the fight for freedom, for the light, and for the right. In addition to such precious teachings, we have yet another sure guide to what the child wants and needs. It is the child himself. He may never be able to articulate, I need this teaching, I need that, and we certainly don't wait for him to tell us. But the child shows us, with his sustained interest, with his happiness and joy, and his concentration at the conclusion of meaningful work, that we have hit the mark with the right lessons, the right activities for him. So there's a great deal of experimentation that we all need to do in finding the way to meet the needs, the spiritual needs of our children. Dr. Montessori also gave us the concept of the absorbent mind. This is the quality of the child mind up to about the age 7, where the child literally drinks in what's in his environment. He learns like a sponge. Learning is effortless, and not only effortless, but it's not discriminating. He doesn't decide, I want this, but I don't want that. He takes it all in. It's taken in a very special way that Montessori called a form of mental chemistry. The child literally builds himself out of the impressions he takes in. Montessori said the child is at the level of the food gatherers. He builds himself out of whatever he finds in his environment. So if we provide the child a poor environment, he has little to build with. On the other hand, if we give him a rich, inspiring environment, one imbued with our love, and better yet, our illumined love that understands the needs of the child and seeks to fill them, the child can take in unlimited amounts of information. And so this morning, we're speaking specifically of the spiritual life of the child, the kind of environment, the kind of activities we can give him. Perhaps our most important instruction comes from a conversation Montessori once had with a mother who came to her. This mother said, Dr. Montessori, how do I teach religion to my child? Montessori drew herself up and said, you don't teach religion to children, you live it before them. Our actions truly speak louder than our words. Our real commitment is what counts. Our daily living, not just those moments when we teach a lesson, are what the child is going to absorb and build himself out of. Dr. Cavalletti says that the real religious work of the child is a beautiful Italian word called innamoramento, and that means falling in love with God. That's the work of the child, and that can never be taught through words alone. So we must provide for the child experiences that will initiate an inner experience with God. As adults, we go into a church. We go into meditation. We go watch a sunset. we do things that will bring us peace and bring us to a heightened awareness of God. So we are seeking materials and lessons to give to the child that will bring him to a point of true mystical experience himself. So it's one thing to teach about our religion, and of course we need to do that at a certain point in the child's life. But for that teaching to be meaningful, it needs to be predicated on experience, even as you and I seek inner experience to validate what we believe. So truly, we want the seeds of religion to develop deeply within the child. And you know, as we see these seeds develop in the child, the living experiences of the child revitalize our experience as teachers. Maria Montessori said in her book, The Child in the Church, "The child must be permitted to penetrate into his supernatural life in his own manner. Even in the presence of God, the child must remain a child. Respect for the child's nature, which God Himself demands of us, compels us to search most carefully for those conditions in which children can abandon themselves most easily to God. The child will reveal to us in certain moments how he makes his own approach to God." So at Montessori International, our school at the Royal Teton Ranch in Montana, we have sought diligently how to present the teachings of the Ascended Masters in a living manner to our children. Our beloved messenger, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, has provided guidance to our faculty in how to give this instruction. Over the years, she has taught us to use the Bible as the basis of our spiritual instruction. The tremendous lessons of life contained in the stories of the Bible can be the mainstay for a child in knowing right and wrong in facing the tremendous decisions of life. So we begin with the very youngest child with Bible stories all the way up through high school. I'd like to show you a few books that we use in our school. This book, The Bible in Pictures for Little Eyes, is a wonderful book for toddlers and young children. It just has one page and one story at a time. My very first Golden Bible is a very nice book for children that are very young that you can read to them, and it's also great as soon as children start to read. The vocabulary is fairly simple and children can read their own Bible stories. My 5-year-old likes to read these. The Seventh-day Adventist Company publishes this book. It's actually a set of 10 volumes called The Bible Story. Mother has long recommended these because they are basically simply told, free from of this or that sect's doctrine. It's just the straight Bible stories, and I think you'll enjoy them. For younger children, the same company puts out a set called My Bible Friends, and these are absolutely wonderful for toddlers and young children, even on up to 5 and 6. They'll take a story of Samuel, for example, and tell his story of priest Eli and learning to know that when the Lord speaks, He listens. We also have Uncle Arthur's Bedtime Stories, which is also put out by the Seventh-day Adventist Press. Very nice stories that children love to have read to them over and over again that give a basic, simple moral message for them. When it comes to teaching the Bible, again, we want to provide more than words. A simple manger scene that you can purchase at Christmas with the various figures in it can be a wonderful teaching aid. For example, you can take the infancy narratives, the stories beginning with the Annunciation of Gabriel to Mother Mary. All you need is a Mother Mary and a Gabriel in the house. You tell the story, you read it in the Bible, and then you provide the material that you demonstrate the story with the child, and then you put it on his little work shelf and allow the child to work with it. You see, by virtue of having a concrete material like this, the child can work with it over his own period of time, go as deeply into his own meditation and contemplation as he wishes. It's a focus for his attention and his concentration. Another wonderful way to work with the Bible is with a felt board. You can tell the story of the birth of Jesus, Joseph guarding the Holy Family, the coming of the wise men with their gifts. Again, you have something for yourself to use to get the child actively engaged. You can leave that out on your shelf and the children can work with it as they want to. So as this foundation of the Bible is being laid for the child, we also familiarize the child with the vocabulary, the culture of our lives in the teachings of the Ascended Masters. Understanding as we do the power of the absorbent mind, we can provide images, sounds, manipulative materials of all kinds that represent spiritual truths. I'd like to show you how we teach the children about the ray of the day. Let's start out and pretend it's Saturday. Here we have the violet flame. Here's our flame for the day. Children love parades, so we'll often have little banners, things that they can carry and hold as part of their lesson. And we'll just put our little banner up on the felt board too. Our master of the violet flame is beloved Saint Germain, and he is our master of freedom. He's one of the sponsors of our country, the United States. The chakra for the Violet Flame Day is the seat of the soul. And one of our gracious masters, our lady masters on the day of the Violet Flame is beloved Kuan Yin. And each one of the 7 rays has elementals for them. And so we can have a picture of a violet flame elemental to put on our felt board. And beautiful violets, the flowers of the ray of the day. And here we have Mother in a violet flame Valentine. And so you can sing and do mantras and just give the children these things to hold. They can put them on the felt board. You can demonstrate it. As young as infants can have a violet flame ray of the day lesson with the felt board. And of course we have these sets for all the 7 days of the week. We have them for all kinds of different lessons that we would present to the children. These elementals, Cicely Mary Baker, I believe, has a whole series of books on the elementals, nature spirits, and you can buy these books and cut them up and get elemental pictures and illustrations of all the 7 rays. Another thing that we use is images to give them the understanding of the things that are important to us. So we'll take, for example, the Maltese cross of Saint Germain, and we'll do a Montessori lesson that's simply called matching cards. Normally I would do this on a table for the children. I'm going to do it on the felt board so you can see. This is the Maltese cross of Saint Germain. This is the threefold flame with the 3 plumes of love, wisdom, and power. Here is a pearl of wisdom, our bread of life, that the masters give us letters every week. And then I would have these matching cards at random and ask the child, can you find one that looks just like this? And then he'll match it. It's simply a lesson for him to have something to do with his hands, to focus his attention and learn the vocabulary and learn the images. It's very simple. In Montessori, we do these matching lessons with all kinds of things: state birds, the presidents, colors, virtually anything you can think of that you would like to present to a child in the way of new vocabulary can be done with matching cards. It's nice to have little concrete symbols for everything that you do. After we give our rosary in the morning, we always give the call, "In the Immaculate Heart of Mary, I trust." And so we have a little heart. And each day somebody gets to wear this around their neck while they lead the call, "In the Immaculate Heart of Mary, I trust." It makes it come alive for our children when we have these concrete, physical lessons for them. Dr. Sophia Cavalletti gives us the advice, give the best for the smallest. What is worthy of the pure and profound spiritual nature of the little child? If our children get bored with their spiritual lessons, if we're losing their attention, we're probably not going deeply enough. We're not giving them the essential kernels of truth. The motto of the young child is, "Help me to do it myself." So in the spiritual realm, our motto is, "Help me to come closer to God all by myself." So let's help him do it. In our lessons from the Bible, from the dictations and the teachings of the messenger, we always begin with the original words from the source. It's vital that we are theologically accurate in giving the teachings to our children. So we always stick closely to the original sources. Secondly, we would provide a material that allows the child to go into his own meditation, his own experience. Montessori taught us the importance of the prepared environment where everything is geared for the needs of the child. So these materials can be presented to the child on a little shelf in his bedroom, in a whole room in a school, any way that you can give him some little space that's specially his for his altar and for his own meditation. But what really do we teach? Our teaching is vast. It's a little overwhelming when we think about the teachings of the Ascended Masters, everything that we know of the Bible and the world's religions, to know what to teach. What are the most essential truths of our faith that we would want to pass on to our children? What do we present and how do we do it? So in addition to the Bible, Mother has given us another guide as to what to teach and in what order. It's her stump message. As Mother has traveled around the country introducing people to our teachings, she's developed a talk with the key concepts that she felt were important for new people to understand. And of course, our children are new to the teachings in this embodiment. And so Mother has recommended that this sequence that she follows in her stump message be the format that we use with our children. So we begin with Archangel Michael, our friend and our protector. We all need protection. We all need to learn to make the call, to get the understanding of the power of the spoken word. So we begin with the children with the very simple lessons on traveling protection. Again, children like parades, they like physical activities, so we have a very nice little blue flag. And we can hold that up and children can carry it. And I'd like to show you how we do the traveling protection with young children. When you engage their physical body, you have their attention. So we give the decree like this. Lord Michael before, Lord Michael behind, Lord Michael to the right, Lord Michael to the left, Lord Michael above, Lord Michael below, Lord Michael, wherever I go. I am his love protecting here, I am his love protecting here, I am his love protecting here. And would you all like to stand and join me? Okay, take the sword from your heart. Lord Michael before, Lord Michael behind, Lord Michael to the right, Lord Michael to the left, Lord Michael above, Lord Michael below, Lord Michael, wherever I go. I am his love protecting here, I am his love protecting here, I am his love protecting here. Thank you. Then we can end up with charge, 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 and let victory be proclaimed. Every child, especially the boys, love to have a sword. Mother goes on into the age of Aquarius and the sponsorship of Saint Germain and the Violet Flame. So the idea needs to be conveyed in age-appropriate ways that the reason we have our organization, our community, our conferences is because we have the sponsorship of the Great White Brotherhood. We have the sponsorship of El Moria, of Saint Germain, and behind them all the way back to Sanat Kumara, to Padmasambhava. It's because they love us and sponsor us that this organization can sustain for us and help us to sustain the contact with our Holy Christ selves, and that our decrees are so effective. The call compels the answer because the Ascended Masters have agreed to answer. And we are so grateful. As I said before, our children learn what they see us live. Our gratitude for these teachings can become the gratitude of our children. And of course, in the great flow of devotion that we give to the Masters, great blessings return back to us. Next, in Mother's stump message, she goes into the chart of the presence. The I Am presence, the causal body, the chakras, and the universal Christ. I'd like to show you a lesson that we've developed using the chart of the presence. We took a chart and cut it into pieces so that we can isolate each part of that chart and give it a name for the children. So here is our mighty I Am presence, our Holy Christ Self, and here is our four lower bodies enveloped in the violet flame. In Montessori, we use what we call a 3-period lesson. And the first period is simply, this is the mighty I Am presence. This is the Holy Christ Self. This is your four lower bodies. After you've given that initial name, then you can play with the child some games and say, show me which one is your mighty I Am presence. And they point to that one. Show me your four lower bodies enveloped in violet flame. The child will point to that one, and so forth. That's the second period. The third period, what's this? Now you're asking the child to give the vocabulary back to you. It's a very simple way, a technique to give any kind of vocabulary, and so we use it for the 3 central figures of the chart. Now we're going to show what else the I Am presence has. Part of our I Am presence are the rings of our causal body, that storehouse of heaven where all of the good things we've ever done in all of our lifetimes have been stored for us. And right around is that white band of purity. And around that is the yellow band of illumination. All of the times we thought God's thoughts and learned about the real, true laws of life. Here's the pink band of love. And the violet band of freedom. The purple and gold band of service, of all the times we've served people in our embodiments. The energy of that service is stored in our causal body in this band. Here's the green band of healing and science. And last of all, the blue band of the will of God and the protection of God around our life. And so again, you can take those off, mix them up, the child can build it. How much more is the child going to get from the sustained attention? Saint Germain teaches us, what you put your attention on, you become. So we can have the child focus his attention for 20 minutes, a half an hour, working, building this chart, thinking about what each one of those pieces represents and means. We also do kind of a fun lesson with our real young children with their threefold flame. So here's my threefold flame. And we give the decree, balance the threefold flame in me. You may know that decree. It goes on, expand the threefold flame in me. So with the toddlers, the young children, expand the threefold flame in me, expand the threefold flame in me, expand the threefold flame in me. How much more living it is than just words. So I mentioned the universal Christ. The reality of our spiritual path is that we reach the Christ, we reach God and our I Am presence through the Christ. How do we present Christ to young children? We can examine this question theologically and psychologically. To be theologically correct, we would find a representation of Christ directly from the Scripture. Among those choices, psychologically, we can choose between Christ as a baby, the infant Messiah, Christ as the young boy of 12, speaking with the doctors in the temple, Christ as the one executing judgment. What's best for the young child? The baby is not a figure of authority for a child. The boy of 12 can well be used as a role model for our elementary age children preparing to speak the word themselves at age 12. Judgment is a rather sophisticated concept for a young child. So let's seek in the Scriptures and find what other images we might have of Jesus. Let's look at the image of Jesus Christ as the shepherd. Jesus actually introduces himself as the Good Shepherd in the parable. He said, "I am the Good Shepherd," in John 10. Now, some children may have had a negative association with their father, which might translate to God the Father. They might have had a difficult relationship with a teacher, but who's had a problem with the shepherd? So this is a rather neutral figure for a child in terms of his own psychology. Parables, as Jesus used them, are a uniquely religious method. When you stop to think about it, the incarnation of the Spirit of God becomes flesh within the Christ. When we look at a parable, we have a spiritual truth, a nugget of truth, housed in the mundane activity of the parable. So the parable is an open invitation for meditation. It has a unique capacity to keep us from going astray. It has two railings that keep the mind on track. It has the mundane activities such as the parable of the leavening of the meal. The woman is baking bread, she's putting leaven in. The second railing is the kingdom of God, that great mystery that's within this parable. So while definitions circumscribe, parables are wide open for us to penetrate just as deeply as we're able in our meditation. One of the most beautiful lessons Dr. Montessori developed for the teaching of religion to young children is now used all over the world. It's the presentation of the parable of the Good Shepherd. You can also, as you give this parable, weave in the story of the lost sheep and the 23rd Psalm, all of which have the image of the shepherd and the sheep. I'd like to share with you the sequence of steps that we follow in presenting the parable, and then I'd like to present the parable of the Good Shepherd for you. So first of all, you tell the parable in your own words. remaining faithful to the text of the Bible. Then you have a little discussion, kind of a meditation with the children, indicating that there's something special in this parable, a mystery that we want to learn about. Then we light a candle and solemnly read the text. Following that, we present the material, a concrete material, with an accompanying dialogue and explanation of what we're doing. Then the child can work alone with the material or perhaps work with a partner. Sometimes you find one child will tell the story while the other one is moving the figures, and then they'll take turns. The next step is a theological drawing. Have the child draw and illustrate what he has understood about the story. And sometimes you'll see amazing things happen during the middle of a drawing. A child will reveal a new level of understanding as he's meditating on his drawing. And then if the child is interested, he can get the Bible out and copy down the whole text. We never make that a requirement, but sometimes children like to do that. And the last thing is to dramatize it. The children sometimes will act out the parable. So we're going to get ready now to make that presentation of the Good Shepherd. Pay attention. There's someone who knows your name. And when this person speaks to you, you will know his voice. You know, a long time ago when Jesus was living on earth, people wondered about who he really was. And one day they asked him. He answered with a story. He said, "I am the Good Shepherd." Not just any shepherd, but the Good Shepherd. He went on to tell them that the shepherd knows each one of his sheep by name. And there were many sheep, but he knew them all by name. And when he would call those sheep, they would hear his voice and recognize the voice of their shepherd. Other people might call them, but they would not follow because they knew the voice of their shepherd. The Good Shepherd leads his sheep out to where there's fresh water, green grass, everything that they need. And he always leads them out, and when it's time to come back, he very carefully brings them back. And you know what happened one time? One of the sheep got lost. They got back to the sheepfold, and one of the sheep was lost. Now, do you think the Good Shepherd thought, "Oh, I have plenty of sheep, I don't need to worry"? Not for a moment. The shepherd made sure all his sheep were safely in their sheepfold, and then he went out to search for the little lost sheep. Now, this shepherd hadn't had any lunch or any dinner, and it was cold. He still had to go out and search until he could find his one little lost sheep. And he called and called over the hillsides until he found this one sheep. And the sheep all of a sudden was listening and heard his shepherd's voice. And he came running. And the shepherd was so thrilled to find his lost sheep that he picked it up and carried it around his shoulder back to the sheepfold. And he was so thrilled to have found his lost sheep, he actually went and got his friends to come and celebrate with him. And then when it came time to go to sleep that night, do you know where that shepherd sleeps? He lies down right in front of the open door of the sheepfold. He lays down his life for his friends, the sheep, so none will get lost during the night. Jesus also told the story that there are other flocks of sheep, but that someday they will all be one flock with one shepherd, and they will all know his name. Isn't that a wonderful story? So that's the way Jesus told us about himself as the Good Shepherd. This story that I just shared with you comes from the Bible. I would like to read to you that Bible story. When we read from the Bible, we light a candle because it's something very special. This story is from the Gospel of John, chapter 10. But he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice. And he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. And when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger they will not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. This parable spake Jesus unto them, but they understood not what things which he spake unto them. Then said Jesus unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for his sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of them. As the Father knoweth me, even so know I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. Them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. To help us meditate on this wonderful story of the Good Shepherd, I have something very special to share with you today. This is our sheepfold. This is our shepherd, the Good Shepherd. And here are our sheep. The Good Shepherd knows each sheep by name, and when he calls them, they come. Each one, imagine that, he knows each one of their names. And when they hear his voice, they know that it's truly him. And he leads them out to where there's green pastures with lots of wonderful fresh grass to eat and pure, clean, cold water. He knows exactly all of their needs. And when it comes time to return to the sheepfold at night, he's always taking care that his sheep get safely home. And he stands right at the gate, and he calls them each by name and counts them to make sure they're all safely back. One of the sheep is missing. Even though our shepherd is tired and hungry, he has to go out and find the sheep. So he'll leave these sheep safely in their pen and go out and search. And he calls that little sheep by name because he knows which one is missing. And he calls, and finally this little sheep that fell over the edge of a hill hears his shepherd's voice, and he calls out, and the shepherd finds him, and he's so happy. He's going to carry him right back to the sheepfold, so the little tired sheep doesn't have to walk the rest of the way. And our good shepherd is going to celebrate with his friends because he's so happy that all of his sheep are now found. And then when it's bedtime, he's going to lie down and sleep right in front of the gate so no sheep can get out and no animals that would be unfriendly to the sheep can come in. The shepherd lies down his life for his sheep. And do you remember the shepherd has other flocks in other pastures, and they also know his voice, and he knows their names, and he calls them. And one day there will be one shepherd and one sheepfold, and they will all be together, even as God the Father loves the shepherd, loves our beloved Jesus. That's how much the Good Shepherd loves his sheep. So at the conclusion of this lesson, I would then invite the child to come and work with this material. I might have a little booklet with the story written. If you're familiar with the parable, you'll recognize that I left out the part of the wolf and the hireling. This presentation is geared for children from 2 to 6 years old, and so we don't want to frighten them about the wolf yet. They can have that part of the story a little bit later. So the Good Shepherd is a marvelous presentation for children as young as 2 to 6 years old. These children come away with a profound sense of peace and safety that God cares for them in a preferential, personal manner. This result has been documented all over the world with children of this age. For children a little older, from 6 to 10 or 12, who are going into the moral stage of analyzing their own behavior, thinking about moral issues, this parable is very reassuring that even if they're lost and they do something naughty, the shepherd still loves them and will still go after them. For the older child, the adolescent, the parable has yet another level of meaning. There's a path, and the shepherd will lead us on that path, and as we follow that path, we're safe in the arms of God. So this parable is very useful all the way through childhood and adolescence. It's actually been used in medical facilities with terminally ill children, and it has been a tremendous comfort to these children to know Jesus through this parable. The Bible has many parables, many of which are excellent material for children, and again, you can make a concrete material to present the parable. This book, Young Children and Worship, is a wonderful handbook that gives actual patterns on how to make the Good Shepherd and materials like this, along with the lesson plans and the explanations of the lesson. This book was written, co-authored by a very good friend of mine, Dr. Jerome Berryman, who studied with Dr. Cavaletti as well. So this is really the Montessori method applied to religion through these lessons. Cavaletti's experience over these 35 and more years with young children have shown that their experiences are spontaneous as they work with these materials. The experience is complex. It has many levels of meaning, of feeling, of moral understanding, of understanding mentally. The experience of the Good Shepherd is not limited by cultural conditioning. People of virtually any religion around the world have worked with this parable. And the experience that the child has is a very deep and real experience. In other words, the children's religious life is real. We as parents and teachers can learn how to assist that life in a much better way. As Mark Prophet used to so often remind us, if people knew better, they would do better. And so as we understand the needs of our children, we can do better in training them spiritually. If our materials are successful, we will see several signs in the children. We will see a deep, abiding joy. We will see that knowledge will arise within them in a kind of a spontaneous, mysterious manner, even beyond that which we've actually taught them. The children will become more aware of the non-material side of existence, and they'll develop a deep capacity for prayer. And you know, it's very interesting. Young children pray with praise. Oh, thank God. This is so beautiful. Thank you for my bike. Thank you for my mommy. Thank you for my house. You'll find that children 6 and 7 and up who are going into a moral stage are the children who start saying, oh God, please give me this or that. It's a prayer of petition that's at a later stage of development. The prayer of praise is what our young children experience. So we've digressed a little bit from the flow of Mother's Stump because I wanted to share with you this beautiful image of how we present the Christ. To go back to the chart of the presence and how we present the various aspects of that, when we go into the study of the lower figure in the chart, it's the time to go into the violet flame, the heart, head, and hand decrees, which are wonderful for children, Kuan Yin and the stories of mercy, the simple decree, I am a being of violet fire, I am the purity God desires. Very, very young children can do that, and what they like to do is you get a little group of children and you say it for each one. Susie's a being of violet fire, Susie's the purity God desires. Jason's a being of violet fire, Jason is the purity God desires. And you go around the room and then say, our mommies are beings of violet fire, our mommies are the purity God desires. And we do our daddies and our brothers and sisters. And it's just a wonderful session that you can have with even very, very young children. When Mother first produced Violet Flame Tape 1, she told us that she had in mind that this was a tape that children from birth to age 7 could learn their Violet Flame decrees with. And so it goes at a slower pace. It's a wonderful tape that over a period of weeks and months, your child can hear this and actually learn to memorize the Violet Flame decrees. We also go into the study of the chakras, and a simple and fun way to teach the chakras is with a jigsaw puzzle. So we took a chart that shows the chakras, and they were all cut out. And so you take the chakras out and you mix them up, the child puts them back in, learns their names, learns a little bit about the flame of each chakra. Again, it's a concrete material that focuses the attention of the child on this teaching. We also like to study Saint Germain as our sponsor and as the great master of the Aquarian age and of the violet flame. There are many ways that we can study his life, his embodiments. For toddlers, we just made a simple picture book with little stories. The Ascended Master Saint Germain is the Chohan of the seventh ray. He is the God of freedom to the earth for the next 2,000-year cycle. As Samuel, prophet of Israel, he heard the voice of God and responded, "Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth." And so you can just take a simple picture and a brief sentence-long story of each embodiment, and this gives your little 1 and 2 and 3-year-olds a sense of who Saint Germain is. With older children, we made a booklet. I am the ruler of a highly advanced civilization where the Sahara Desert is now. I had the attainment necessary to make my ascension during this life, but I continued to take embodiment to better serve the evolutions of Earth. Who am I? And so then the child, after he's had some lessons, can guess. It's the Emperor King, 50 to 70,000 years ago. So this is all a booklet of who am I questions on Saint Germain's embodiment, his embodiments. I mentioned that we like to stay close to the sources. You can take an excerpt from a dictation, from a book, and create a little lesson out of it. Here's one about Saint Germain, what we do on the felt board. I wear pure golden sandals with ribbons of light. A crown made of sun rays. A cloak of God's might. I carry a scepter, my focus of God power. I pour forth the pure Christ each moment, each hour. So it's so simple, but it makes it come alive for the young child. Another lesson that you can create is matching cards of the Ascended Masters. I remember back in 1972, I first had the idea to make Ascended Master lessons using the Montessori method. And I made some cards and I mounted them. I had 2 pictures of Mother Mary, 2 pictures of El Moria, 2 pictures of Jesus. And I was going to set them out one evening on childcare for the children to match. Well, I had the most incredible experience of the children as I handed these pictures out. They didn't want to put them down on the rug to match them. They held them to their hearts. And they started just repeating over and over again the names of the masters. And I realized what a great desire these children have to have a personal relationship with the masters and how much they love them and they know them as their sponsors and their friends of light. A very simple way to do this lesson: make a little card with the little cards that you can purchase of Jesus, Kuthumi, Mother, Zarathustra. Put the other pictures at random. Let's see what we have here. Can you match this to the picture that looks just the same? Again, you don't even have to have vocabulary for a young child. He can just be working with the images, and so he'll put Zarathustra's picture right underneath. Let's see, what's this one? That one matches there. For a little older child, you can have him read a label. Kuthumi, let's see, which one is Kuthumi? We'll put it right under Kuthumi's picture. Again, it gives him the focus of his attention. If you're working on phonics with your child, you can have the first sound of the name, J. Whose name starts with a J? J, Jesus. And so that J would go right underneath Jesus' picture. Next in the stump message comes the messenger's personal history, how they found the masters, how Mark found his twin flame. And so we've created some simple books and materials. A story of Lanello, our ever-present guru. This is used in our toddler classroom at Montessori International. Mark Prophet was born in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin in 1918. At the age of 18, El Moria called him to his mission. In 1958, El Moria directed Mark to found the Summit Lighthouse in Washington, D.C. In 1961, Mark was joined by his twin flame, Elizabeth. Together, they fulfilled the prophecy of the 2 witnesses. On February 26, 1973, Mark passed on and his soul ascended to the plane of the I Am Presence. He continues to direct the activities of the Summit Lighthouse. Ours must be a message of infinite love, and we must demonstrate that love to the world. We can make a timeline of the lives of the Ascended Masters, of the events in one given embodiment. Even as the sheep recognize the voice of their shepherd, so we know that our children respond to the voice of Mark Prophet. And so it's wonderful to have his tapes. The Only Mark series, the Discourses on Cosmic Law. From the very earliest ages in our community, our children hear the voice of Mark, giving lectures, giving dictations. Also the rosary, mother's tapes, all kinds of things. It's very important. And there's a wonderful series of the incarnations of the magnanimous heart of Lanello, the tapes that the children love to hear, the stories. We actually use the various embodiments of the masters as part of our history curriculum up through the elementary ages. But this one especially, Lanello's embodiment is Aesop. is a wonderful tape album for young children to hear the stories. Now Moria, as the guru of our messengers and the founder of our organization, comes next. And of course we can use again booklets, timelines, all kinds of images, excerpts from dictations. There is so much you can do with your children at home in a Sunday school setting. It doesn't have to be complex, it just has to be joyous, and it has to be accurate. Even little babies can have the teachings of the masters presented through images, focuses to hold. For toddlers, they like to hold things that are laminated so if they bite them, they won't get ruined. All kinds of things that can be put on an altar. Little children love to have an altar and to have maybe a basket of items so they can choose what goes on that altar each day. Children in very young ages like to waltz. We've done it for years with our toddlers and our young children all the way up through elementary. A couple of months ago, several of our faculty were visiting some Montessori schools in Texas, and lo and behold, we saw the children waltzing in one of their toddler classes there too, and we thought, how wonderful. It's really sweet to watch them waltz. Sunday school can begin very early. Our goal is to prepare the children to live the life of our church and all that that entails. So in a Sunday school class from babies on up, you can have a small altar, give the children focuses to hold, do a finger play or some initial activity to draw them in with a song, a mantra, brief invocation. The reading of a psalm is very special. We always include that as part of Sunday school. Then you can give the Ray of the Day or some kind of a felt board activity with a Bible story. That Bible story, you can send a little note home to the parents of what you studied, and so they can follow up with stories at home to reinforce what you give. We have a short decree service that would be appropriate to the ages. It might go from 5 or 10 minutes with the younger children up to 15 or 20 minutes with the older children. Starting at about age 2, children can memorize short little sections of the Bible, and they like to do that. There comes a time for formal instruction in the law. Confirmation at age 12 marks the time when the child, even as Jesus did when he spoke with the doctors and the elders in the temple, is required to present himself as knowledgeable in the law. So the elementary years from ages 7 through 12 are the prime times for giving children the Ascended Master's teachings. This is a time when children can learn incredible quantities of information. Maria Montessori actually said that people are at their academic prime when they're in elementary school. I think many of you find that a lot of the facts and things that you know about, you remember because you were taught them in elementary school. They love to decree. Our elementary children at Montessori International have a half-hour session every morning, 15 minutes of violet flame after lunch. We've had some wonderful success with incorporating rhythmic movements and activities with violet flame decrees, with Archangel Michael decrees, and so forth. The simple activities that every child knew when you play games with your friend. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. Again, you're getting them physically engaged, and they love it. Our faculty has developed some very nice games for elementary children. I just want to show you how simple they can be. It's a board game of the Starry Mother, and it has images of Ascended Masters. You have a little spinner, you spin it, and if you get, for example, 3 spaces, you go 3, and then you have to answer a question, and I'll give you an example. Immigrants from the lands of Europe are glad to see my flame when they enter New York Harbor. Who am I? So that would be the Goddess of Liberty. And if you get the answer right, then you get to move your little marker, which is, we have little plastic angels, and they move along 3 spaces, and the person who gets to the end gets to have a special focus of Mother Mary as a prize. And so it's something anybody can make at home. They're very simple, and they're lots of fun. The children love them. We also made a game for the Jesus Watch with me. And it's simply match the definitions with the word and match the pictures with the correct word. So you can take some of the very first words in the Jesus Watch. Like the keystone of an arch, you are the sum total of divine potential. Well, first of all, the child has to know what a keystone of an arch is. And so we have a picture and a little definition. The piece at the crown of the arch that locks the other pieces in place. And it's a very simple activity, but again, it gives him a concrete material to focus on. It's a great age for color books. How many of you used to like to color when you were growing up? I know I certainly did. You can have coloring books of the saints that give the events in their lives. We have Our Lady of Guadalupe, the different appearances of Mother Mary, St. Francis of Assisi. We have our own coloring book that our staff produced, The Ways to God's Heart, which is very nice illustrations of simple teachings and of the 7 Chohans of the rays. Now, with the foundations that have been laid at earlier ages, or if you're new to the teachings that you're starting with your child, the ages from 7 to 12 are very important to give an overview of the Ascended Master's teachings. We have 2 programs to assist you in the training of your children. The first is the program of First Holy Communion lessons, a set of 12 lessons prepared by our faculty under the direction of our mother. These lessons will prepare your child, the age of 7 or above, to receive the sacraments of penance and Holy Communion in Church Universal and Triumphant. I'd like to read to you a little bit of teaching Mother gave on September 2nd, 1981, to the students at our Montessori teacher training program about the importance of the lessons for First Holy Communion. Communion is something we prepare for. We work for. We have certain lessons we must learn in order to take that communion. And when we come for our first communion, it must be a point of readiness in our lives. A major event, because I have prepared, I have studied, I have come of age, and now I have entered that moment when I may receive the body and blood of Jesus. So it has long been in the heart of Jesus and Kuthumi and Mother Mary that parents and teachers should come together and that we should prepare a course for our children on the sacrament of Holy Communion, that they might realize that that which they see others partaking of is something that they must prepare for and be worthy of. And in that correct light, the ritual of Holy Communion, all of their lives, will have that much more meaning. They will remember that they took communion because they wanted to. They took the wafer and the wine in the full comprehension of its meaning. So this complete set of lessons with videotapes and audio tapes is available to you to have in your homes and your study groups through Summit University Press. The second program is still under development. It's a program to prepare students who have had their first Holy Communion for confirmation at age 12. The program we're using is called Inner Perspectives. It's a series of taped radio interviews that Mother gave in Los Angeles from May to August in 1977, wherein she introduces the key concepts of the Ascended Master's teachings in a very simple, easy to understand manner. So it comes in a set of audio tapes and a 3-ring binder that has the complete transcripts of all of these tapes. Each child at Montessori International has their own set of these binder pages, and we study them, we listen to the tapes and study them. Those tapes and the binder are available right now. We hope that very soon we'll have the materials that we're making a supplement to it will be soon available. For example, in the second interperspective lesson, we have some vocabulary that the child needs to be familiar with in order to understand it. Samadhi, a deep spiritual meditation. Affirmation, a positive assertion. Mantra, a mystical formula or invocation. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the Hindu sacred triad, the creator God, the preserver God, and the God of destruction and regeneration, and so forth. And then we have bingo cards. So you can play bingo with these definitions. This is very popular in our elementary school. So we plan for this entire supplementary program of vocabulary cards and worksheets to be available in the near future. I would like for you to hear Mother's comments on the importance of the confirmation program. She delivered these comments on July 3rd, 1983.
Those who teach children ages 0 to 12 must understand that they are preparing the child to be able to discuss the law intelligently as Jesus did with the doctors in the temple. These children must be presented to Saint Germain, Mother Mary, and Jesus to be able to give answer on the basic teachings of the Brotherhood and the Bible, the life of Jesus, and the message of the prophets. Jesus discoursing in the temple at the age of 12 is like a final exam of the first 12 years of his life. He is preparing to go forth, whether to school at Glastonbury, or whether to the Far East. He is preparing for higher education and acceleration with tutors who are more advanced than those that are in his hometown. The year of 12 is coming full circle on the cosmic clock, where the child then begins the next 12-year period of personal development. As you know, that 12 years is the sign of puberty as well as the descent of karma. Many challenges come to the child, many changes alchemically, biologically. We must be prepared to understand and meet the needs of the child. We must prepare the child to meet his own needs in an adult world, in his own world, and with the understanding of what is to be expected. This is a very important hour, and I am requesting that our sponsors, teachers, and parents move together in great concern and in great love with a program of study that is simple, basic, and yet complete in the fundamentals of the law. The teaching of cosmic law is natural. It does not require the complicated corollaries and extensions that are seen later in life for a child to be well-rounded in the knowledge of the cosmic hierarchy, the knowledge of the chart, dynamic decrees, karma, reincarnation, the paths of the saints, the personalities of the masters, and fundamentals that these children of these ages are fully capable of mastering, some of the same fundamentals that we present in our stumps and our inner workshops. These teachings need to be made fun and joyous with a lot of visuals and a lot of active participation where rhythm is used as children, little children recite their decrees, where the tempos of marching and three-quarter time are developed, an inner sense of timing and rhythm so that the bodies can be developed as the minds are developed, and children are not simply force-fed or put in a hothouse for that development, but rather the teaching becomes a part of the total life exercise of nature, of the outdoors, of helping in the sacred labor situation, of joyously producing, a balance of sports, and all these things can be used to demonstrate the principles of ascended master law.
All children need to be trained. This is so vital for us to remember. There are very few born Sheilas, and none of us who are parents should assume that we have one. Archangel Jophiel once told us in a dictation that even the mission of Jesus Christ could have been lost without the proper parents and the proper training. Mother went on to tell us that it is a warning from Mother Mary. You will lose your children if you don't train them, if you don't give them a path. It's very important that they understand their own religion. Now, this does not require that we insist and require that our children follow in our footsteps. It is our job to love our children, to train them as best we know how, and then to leave them free to make their own choice, to follow their own path. We must give them this freedom. It is our calling as parents, as teachers, as friends of children to educate the child. Beloved Gautama Buddha told us in a dictation in October of 1989 that next to the work at the altar and the publishing of the teachings themselves, education is our most important mission. On July 3rd, 1991, beloved Lord Lanto, the Chohan of the second ray of illumination, spoke to us of the necessity, I quote, the absolute necessity for keepers of the flame in their study groups and teaching centers to make room in their hearts, in their homes, in their centers themselves, to bring in the children, whatever children, and begin to teach them. He went on to say, beloved ones, they cannot prosper unless they also have a firm tie to Almighty God, to their own I Am presence. And therefore, apart from these schools, there must be the free will option for parents to enter their children into religious studies. And so we would learn to train our children. We must train them to read and write and compute. And we must also train them in the spiritual matters and the development of their hearts. This morning, I have tried to give you a glimpse of the rich spiritual potential that our children have, and some ideas and techniques that you can use to assist your child's spiritual unfoldment. I can truly tell you, from 20 years' experience of sharing the teachings with children, it is a richly rewarding and a very joyous work. Thank you.